What's up, guys? Got something a bit different for you all this week. It's not an announcement video, it's my testimony. And I'm doing it on a video because I I wouldn't be comfortable. I wouldn't be able to do it in person because I'm really shy. And there's people who know my family that will swear up and down that this story isn't true, that parts of this are made up. But I assure you that I'm being 100% transparent about everything I say. I didn't grow up in church. I mean, not really a Christian family. My father doesn't believe in God. My mother only started going to church when I did a few years ago. I guess you say I was a bad kid. I was disrespecting my parents and my siblings, and I had issues with my parents. They spent a good part of of my life convincing me that there was something wrong with me, that I was this horrible, crazy person, and I developed anxiety disorder after being forced to go to therapy over a few years, and all this just contributed to the way I grew up. I was introverted, and I was extremely shy, and I didn't have many friends. I stayed to myself, and my sister started going to youth at Eastview Baptist a few years in 2008, and for months she would ask me to go, but I refused because I hated stepping out of my comfort zone. I finally caved and went in late 2008. I immediately felt welcome. I knew that I could talk to people, that there was people that would accept me, and I didn't have to worry about who I was. And so I continued to go. I stayed in church for the better part of 3 years. I thought I was a Christian. When it came to playing church, no one was better. Like, no one was more convincing than me. I knew that I would talk the talk and I walk the walk, but there wasn't a change. I was the same person I was. I wasn't saved. This went on for a few years, and then last year I hit rock bottom. I went through an unhealthy breakup in November of 2010, and I went into severe depression because of it, and started cutting, and I was down all the time. I hated God. I had devoted my heart, my life to this part of a girl, and when that was gone, and there was a hole there, and I didn't know how to react to it. I went about the wrong way. It was unhealthy on both sides, and so I put my hope in a girl instead of God, which will never work out. And then that December, I was suicidal, and it was late December, and I was going to kill myself, but my parents had gotten a message from the girl telling me how I was acting, and so they came home and stopped me and tried to talk about it, but and they didn't know that they came home before I was even going to do anything, so I swore that I didn't know what they were talking about, that I was fine. I swore that she was lying about it, and I let it go, and I stopped cutting because I didn't want nobody to know. But things were getting worse. Things weren't looking up. I had this hole in my heart. I needed something that was bigger than myself, but I didn't realize it yet. And then in March of last year, I met a girl. I started dating her. She claimed to be a Christian, and she still does, but she led me down the wrong path. Within a month of dating her, we had sex for the first time. I had the mindset that God didn't care what we did because we were Christians, which is completely wrong. And that continued, and then we broke it off and got back together a couple times before, and I told myself I was done. I gave up. And then for that whole past year, all I wanted was to be loved. I wanted to be a part of something that would last. But I didn't realize it, but that's something that only Jesus Christ can fill in your life. And I was still looking in all the wrong places. And right after that, things exploded at home. My dad has bipolar disorder, and we've been at odds with each other for years. And we would constantly argue. It was unreal how much hate there was in our family. In June, things were getting worse. I was rebelling against God and my parents because of my last breakup. I knew that God wanted me to give my life to Him. I realized that because I knew in my head that God was real, but I didn't believe it in my heart. And then, so I wouldn't trust Him. And then one morning, I woke up to my parents fighting. I got up and I joined in the argument, and things escalated. And it got to the point to where my dad threatened to kill my mom, and I exploded. I started screaming at him. I told him I was threatening him, and he told me he was going to beat the heck out of me. And he's had an unregistered gun in his truck, and he went out to the truck. And so me and my mom locked the doors and called the we had to call 911. And as soon as the cops came, my dad started talking about how I was a lunatic and I was going insane. And so we called them hoping that they'd make him leave, but because he had talked to them first, they only made him go to work so we could get our stuff, and we had to get out of the house. And so for 2 weeks this summer, I lived with my best friend, and I couldn't tell anybody where I was, and my family, that was my mom, my mother, and my brother, were in North Carolina. I went and joined them after a week, and we couldn't tell anybody where we were. And that led me, instead of turning to God after a situation like that, I turned to the wrong things. I started that week. I smoked marijuana for the first time. I did everything you can think of. You name it, I did it. I kept sleeping with. I slept with different girls over the summer. It wasn't something. It was something I knew that was wrong, but I didn't care. I had given up on trying. All I wanted was to make myself happy, because I was tired of being miserable my whole life. And then halfway through July, I gave up. I knew I couldn't do it anymore, not on my own. I broke down and I begged God to forgive me. I begged Him to take over because I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to stop knowing in my head that it was all real, because I had known that for years. I believed what it said, the Bible said, but I didn't believe it in my heart, and that's all I wanted. I didn't want to be fake anymore. I wanted to be real for this. I wanted to be real to God. I wanted to be real to myself. And I asked Jesus into my heart, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. He was always there waiting for me, and all I had to do was turn to Him. We had come back home after leaving a few weeks later, because my father's story had changed, and I knew that the whole situation, all of it that's ever happened to me, was because I didn't comprehend the fact that nothing I do on my own can ever be good or satisfy my soul. I became a different person. I started after I got saved. I started taking church seriously. I realized that I wasn't where I needed to be. I cared about someone other than myself for once. I cared about the fact that the only perfect soul to ever walk this earth, the only good human being that ever lived, died for someone like me, who had spit in his face and just gone against him so many times. It was the craziest thing in the world to me. And I started looking for a new church to help with music ministry. And after a few months in a few churches, Caitlin Rogers asked me to come here to Central Baptist, and I did. And that night, I talked to Will Cofield about playing guitar with him. And over the next few weeks, everything fell into place. We had a band going. Justin and Treston started coming, and the other players started coming to practice. And the Pulse was the first real fellowship as a church that I had experienced after becoming a real Christian. And it's amazing, because to realize that you're not alone, that there's other people who believe the same thing as you, and that you're not crazy, because it was insane to me. I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that someone who's perfect, who has never done anything wrong, would give up his life for people who didn't deserve it in any way, shape, or form. And so I started working with the music ministry, and things have just gone up since I've become a Christian. God has blessed me in so many ways. I've been working on my relationship with my father and the rest of my family, and I'm working hard to reverse the damage I had done to my witness at school. And lately, I know that I'm saved no matter what, and that God has forgiven all my past sins, but I've been struggling. Satan's right at my doorstep, throwing everything he can at me to make me stumble. Mistakes from my past are just now coming back to face me. Stuff's been going around school that I'm a pothead and a hypocrite because of what happened this summer. So my witness is just damaged, and I'm working to repair it. But it's really, really hard, because you can, just like that, you do something. Somebody, people are always watching you, and you'll ruin your witness in a moment. And a few months ago, I found out that this summer I had gotten a girl pregnant, and she had lied to me about it, that she wasn't pregnant, and then she had an abortion, and I didn't know anything about it until about a month ago. Her mama said something on Facebook, and I asked her what she was talking about. She told me what had happened, and I don't know how to deal with it. I mean, it feels like I have so much guilt about the fact that my mistake, which I knew was wrong, could lead to something like that. But I know that God doesn't look at me any different for what I did before I became a Christian. He looks at me for what I'm doing in His name instead of what I did for myself. And I don't know why He's shown this to me, why He's revealed that to me, but I know that I'll understand in the end. It'll help me grow and accept what I've done in my past and turn away from my sins. And because if God can forgive me, then I have to forgive myself. I'm still a young Christian. I've only been saved since July of last year, so it's been 7-8 months. But I'm going to try everything I can to stand firm in my faith, and I hope you guys do the same.